A bit of stress is good, isn't it? Certainly that's what we get told. A little bit of stress helps us get motivated and get things done. But what if we end up in a state where that stress is there all the time and over time it starts to develop into anxiety? We might not even notice that it's there. It might just become the norm, the background feeling. We might just start to think, well, this is what it's like when it's working or you're bringing up the kids or whatever. This is what it's like. This is just stress. This is normal. What might happen though is when one of those life changes happens, whether it's the kids moving out, redundancy, early retirement, whenever, what can happen is because that anxiety, which has been the norm and just sits in the background, and that's the way your body is used to feeling, because it suddenly doesn't have that high pressure behind it from external sources like a boss, the family, whatever, because it doesn't have those external sources, because it's got nothing really pushing it on, then we can suddenly find ourselves in what should be a relaxed situation, but feeling really anxious. And it can take an awful long time for that to start to come down. And here's the really insidious thing. We might not even notice it in day one because the newness of everything might be enough to keep it going. But over time, the slightest things come in, the slightest jobs come in, and all of a sudden we go at those jobs in the way that we're used to. But unfortunately, the way that we're used to also involves using a whole load of anxiety, and that can start getting toxic, that can start getting really unhealthy for us. And we end up where we can't relax. We end up where all those projects that we wanted to do, we can't do. We can't move on quite so easily. We can't so easily go, this is the next stage of my life, I'm going to enjoy it. Or even try and think to ourselves, what is it I want to do now? I've got these changes, I've got these circumstances that I can move into. What is it I want to do now? Because your mind is too busy going, you've got to do something, to the extent where that ability to sit down and think is all but gone, and the overwhelm is just spiraling, sometimes out of control. If you recognise this, then you probably also recognise that it's not an easy thing to get out of. That cycle of anxiety where there is no break, where it is the norm, there is no easy way to step off of that. But at some point we have to. Now, hopefully that can be maybe chatting with a friend, maybe even a therapist, coach, counsellor, or probably the one that's most open to most people is go down and talk to your GP. But a lot of people might be worried about talking to their GP, especially nowadays. Certainly we're in the UK, it can be a bit difficult, but once you actually get to talk to the GP, it can be really useful. But the important thing is, if you are going to talk to someone, maybe think about it beforehand. Okay, the first opening conversation might not be, oh, let's talk about such and such, but think about what you want to say. One of the worst things you can do is go into one of these situations, such as talking to your GP, and just start talking to them, because your conversation can go anywhere. So it's really worthwhile going down, having written out what you want on a piece of paper, or even what are the worst things you're feeling, writing it down on a bit of paper. Because one of the problems is the GP has a very finite amount of time to see you. And so you could end up missing a part, and you could end up with the GP going, okay, here's antidepressants. Now that's great. Antidepressants work for a lot of people, but they might not suit you right now. It might be that what you really need is a talking therapy. What might be that you need something that's more specific to the anxiety when it comes on, rather than a full-blown antidepressant. So there isn't just one solution, there's a few solutions. And at this point, really looking to actually pull in that anxiety, have some way, you're not going to get a fix. Anxiety that has been with you for many years is not going to switch off overnight. The effects of that anxiety are not going to change overnight. So finding a way just to take the edge off it and then slowly bring it in so that you're starting to be able to think, so that you're beginning to see a way forward and be able to think of a plan and realise, and this is an important bit, realise there is a future. It isn't just that this is it for the rest of your life. You have a future. And you also are not to blame about this. It's circumstances, it's what's happened. Many people, myself included, have gone through this kind of situation with building up that background anxiety that just leaves us in a very toxic situation. But by being able to take the edge off of the anxiety at the start, it allows us to move forward. And what does moving forward look like? Well, the next stage is trying to figure out ways of really controlling the anxiety. So when it comes back on, you have more techniques that allow you to get into that. So there might be breathing exercises, somatic therapy, these kind of things where you can actually change how your body feels. Now remember the phrase, the body knows the score. It's a book as well, a very good book. It's true. Your body remembers things. It remembers things from years and years ago. It knows the state that it thinks you should be in, the state that is the norm. So we're having to adjust the body. We're having to bring that back into the norm. There are two states. You'll probably have heard of it described as fight or flight or rest and digest. We really want the rest and digest with occasionally going into fight or flight. That's a more natural way for it. But a lot of us end up in that fight or flight. The fight or flight is also known as the sympathetic state or the sympathetic reaction. It should be a reaction, not a constant state. That's the one that gets us out of trouble or gets us moving. That's the one that when something comes up and we need to deal with it, we can go into the fight or flight. There's other stages as well, but that's what we tend to go into. What we want to be into is that rest or digest, and that is known as the parasympathetic state. And that's the one where we are feeling more relaxed. It doesn't necessarily mean you're all chilled out and everything's lovely and what have you, but it is a more comfortable state to be in, and it's a state that we should be in a lot of the time. If we don't have that, then we're not relaxing, we're not recovering. That's a biggie, we're not recovering. And so our health might start to be affected further on because of this. So the kind of things that help with that are the likes of somatic therapy, are the likes of breathing techniques and talking and what have you. Also, as far as you are concerned, starting to build a bit of structure into your life, getting those routines can help an awful lot. Because when we aren't having to think so much, that might sound dreadful when we're not having to think so much. I like a bit of thinking. But when we're getting the chance to just go through things, the simpler routines, the getting up, the bed, the going out, getting the paper, shower, whatever, when we have those routines, and our entire day doesn't have to be that way, but things are already decided. Our body state doesn't have to be in a high state of alert just to get the newspaper. So starting to build in routines that suit you, not someone else. It's fair enough to give our time to someone if we want to, but first and foremost, we should be deciding for ourselves. There's an old saying about how do you measure success? When do you know something's been successful? Well, if you leave the decision for that with someone else, then you might never see success. If you do things that are for you, or better still, if you do things that are in a way that suits you, you decide the success. And when you decide the success, you start seeing that things are working. And when you start seeing that things are working, you start to get that buzz around it. Yes, dopamine's kicking in here as well. If you can start seeing that dopamine coming in, there's more reward. You've shifted your state. There's been a transition, if you like. And that reward is making you feel better. And you're more likely to do it then as well. You're more likely to automatically start doing things that suit you and things that are more restful for you, or recover, or brings you back into that rest and digest state. When we get to there, we can start to take on the bigger projects. We can start to think, what am I going to do for the next while? What are those things that I really fancy doing? Because we'll have more control over it. But one of the biggies from that is not to let the past affect how we're going on. There could be a bit of resentment because of the anxiety being the thing that controlled you. There could be even a bit of shame there as well, but it doesn't have to be. It's perfectly natural if they are, but that's in the past. You're moving forward. Don't let the past stay with you. This is where something like mindfulness can be really useful, because mindfulness allows us to focus on the present. It allows us to not ignore the past, but allow the past to be where it is, in the past. The only thing we can really control is right now. And the only thing that we can influence is the future. The past is the past. I might describe these as simple steps or a simple process. They can take a while. We need to adjust. But there is help there. There are ways of getting beyond the constant toxic anxiety. It does take a while though, but the steps are there. And when you do, then the future, your future, what you want to do, that more positive life and outlook is definitely possible. Hopefully this video is giving people a bit of an idea of what might be possible if they are in that state of anxiety, particularly in some kind of life change. And it's not just early retirement, redundancy, kids going away. There can be a whole different host of reasons why it happens. As always, please feel free to like and subscribe, all that kind of thing. Anything you would like to say, please feel free to put it in the discussion, remembering it's a public forum. Put it into the comments. I'll get back to you. Or if you would prefer to contact me direct, please feel free. If you're interested in how change can actually rob you of your identity and how you can start to build that back up so that you find your identity again, then I've stuck a link to that video here. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much. Bye.